With me is Tom Ballou, president of the Mid-State Beekeepers Association. Tom, thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about the Mid-State Beekeepers Association.
Well, Teresa, we're a hobbyist organization. We're headquartered in Columbia, but we have members from all over South Carolina. Some folks come from Greenville, from Aiken, from Saluda County. So we're a large organization, have several hundred members, and have been around for about 20 years now. That's
a pretty big group, and you're there to provide resources for those interested in the art of beekeeping.
Our big mission is to help people become beekeepers and to provide training and education for beekeeping and to provide support for people who are into beekeeping and help them solve all the various issues that come along with the hobby.
Well, I think we might spark a little interest. Maybe some people will be excited about getting involved because you brought some neat tools with you, including a variety of honey. Now, what I noticed is so interesting is they're different colors or different shades.
Well, Teresa, I did bring this honey as a teaser to try to entice people who are interested in becoming beekeepers. And of course, the main reason is to get honey. And honey is sweet and delicious, and it comes in different flavors. And those flavors correspond real generally with the color. Some honey is darker than others. And the flavor does vary quite a bit from source to source and from season to season as well.
Okay, and so we could expect a darker color to have perhaps a more strong flavor?
A little bit stronger flavor, exactly, and there may be a little bit more pollen in there mixed in, and it's just a different mixture of nectar sources is the main difference from spring versus fall produced honey.
Okay, very good. And if someone wants to start producing their own honey, they're going to need to have some supplies. So you brought a super with you and kind of go through how that works?
They will need some supplies, but also they'll need a lot of coaching and training too, and that's again one of our big points is to provide training for beginner beekeeping. And I brought with me what is called a super, and this is full of frames, and I would like to just show you, just again as a teaser, for people who are interested in becoming beekeepers, sort of what they might expect to see inside their beehive. And so very commonly, a brand new beehive will start with what they call a frame with bare foundation. It's just a sheet of wax, and that's a real typical starting place for a beehive.
So we're going to give the bees something to work with, make it a little bit easier for them.
Exactly, give them a start. So the bees are installed into your hive. They immediately start producing wax from glands on their thorax, and they start drawing out the comb, as it's termed. They start creating honeycomb, and it's a very slow, gradual process and the work of tens of thousands of bees. And as you can see, as each one of these frames, the honeycomb is getting a little deeper and more spread out over the surface of the frame.
Very interesting. So those bees are hard at work in there.
They really are. They are producing, of course, wax. And once the wax gets developed to the point where it's ready to receive the honey, then they start placing nectar in there. And there's a whole process associated with that. We're just going to skip right to that. This is really the best part about being a beekeeper is particularly the first time you do this, when you pull your first frames of capped honey out of your hive. There really is nothing else like that in the whole world, Teresa. It's delicious, totally natural, and it's made by your very own bee. So it's a lot of fun.
What a great reward.
Absolutely, and of course it's delicious and sweet, and the amount of honey that a single beehive can produce under good conditions is just amazing. Potentially several gallons per hive.
Wow, that is quite a bit. Now we do have to be careful. We can't remove all of the honey, is that correct?
Absolutely, and there's very much a strategy associated with managing the beehives to balance the amount of honey that is harvested for your own consumption versus what you leave behind for the bees, because this is what they feed on during the wintertime. Of course, there's no nectar, very little pollen in the wintertime, so you have to leave enough food behind for the bees to survive. And again, that's part of our educational program, is to teach people how to do that and how to manage their bees so that they are as successful as possible, and so you can optimize, not necessarily maximize, but optimize the harvest of honey from each hive.
That's great. Certainly good to be able to have see the fruits of your labor and then also have that to continue. Now, beekeeping, there's a little bit of work involved.
A little bit of work, a little bit of equipment, and so it may not be for everybody, but there are a lot of people who are very interested in beekeeping these days, and there are folks who are interested in helping bees and to helping pollinators. There are things that you can do, especially as a gardener. This show is very much oriented toward folks who are gardening, and so I know there's a lot of interest in what can the individual landowner, homeowner, gardener do to help bees and other natural pollinators. Now, this has been an issue of national attention over the last year. The president created a committee, an interagency committee to look at pollinator health and pollinator success, and they just recently came out with a very detailed plan with very specific goals and strategies to help honeybees, but also other natural pollinators. And one of those things, of course, is how do we manage our own natural landscape in our yards, especially as gardeners. And so there's strategies that we can pursue as gardeners to optimize and maximize the availability of nectar and also pollen, which are both required by honeybees and other pollinators too, but to have those present in the yard, in the garden, to attract the bees and all the other pollinators that are present.
Sure, and you just so happen to bring some flowers that people might want to incorporate into their yard, and they happen to bloom at different times. We'll start with one that is more of a spring bloomer, and I believe we have a photograph of this to show. Tell us a little bit about this plant.
This is really one of my favorite bee plants. This is called the spiderwort, Tradescantia virginiana. It's an herbaceous perennial. It blooms very profusely in the spring and summer, and it has the benefit of coming in 5 different colors, but also bees really like this as a pollen source in the spring and summer. So if you get this established in your yard and there are honeybees and other pollinators in your neighborhood, you will see them working this very vigorously all through the spring and summer months. And if it's managed correctly, you can even get this plant to bloom all the way into the late fall. So it's a hard to beat bee plant.
I love that plant for lots of different reasons, although we do have to be a little bit careful. It can be a little, we'll say, aggressive. It likes to spread.
It absolutely does.
But that's good if you're wanting to attract pollinators to your yard. And then we have 2 different yellow flowered species in here. Let's see.
We're actually looking at 3 different perennial sunflowers here in the middle. We'll start with that one. This is the Maximilian sunflower. This is sort of a new plant in my experience, but I have discovered that honeybees and other pollinators use it as a fall nectar source, which is a little bit unusual. There tends to be less nectar available in the fall. So anytime you can find a fall nectar source, that's really good. The bees like it. It's a large, erect perennial, produces this amazing profusion of beautiful yellow flowers. So it's hard to beat in that respect, but also monarch butterflies, other butterflies, honeybees and other pollinating insects are attracted to it as a source of nectar. So that's the Maximilian sunflower.
Great.
Now, over on the left here, we'll go to that one next. That's the swamp sunflower, very closely related species, very similar in habit to the Maximilian sunflower. They get very large, so you have to be disciplined with them.
They sure do. I've seen some like 8 feet tall.
They can, or more. But it's a beautiful plant. Amazingly enough, as similar as those 2 species are, honeybees are really not particularly interested in the swamp sunflower. Other pollinators are, though, which is a good thing. So we like to help all the pollinators if we can.
Definitely.
Now,
they're all important.
Now we're going to get to my favorite plant. And I know my friends with Mid-State Beekeepers are going to laugh when I talk about this. This is the Schweinitz's sunflower. And this is a plant that I've sort of taken on as a personal mission to help spread it all across South Carolina. It's a very rare plant. It only occurs in the upstate and the Rock Hill, Charlotte areas. Bees love it. It is a
bee magnet?
It's a fabulous fall nectar source, again, and they are attracted to this almost as much as the spiderwort, so it is hard to beat. Now, the trick with the Schweinitz's sunflower is it's an endangered species, so there are regulations and limitations on how it can be obtained, and in particular cannot be bought or sold. So one of my missions with Mid-State Beekeepers has to create sort of an adopt a plant program. Folks who are interested in obtaining a Schweinitz's sunflower, if it's done under the right conditions, the right procedures, it's perfectly legal and allowed. And so we have a program in usually January, February, sometimes March, where we adopt these out to beekeepers all over South Carolina. So helps them with their bees and also helps the propagation of this very rare and beautiful sunflower.
How neat. Adopt a plant.
Absolutely.
Now, if folks are interested in learning more, what's the best way to contact you?
We have a website, and several of our members, William Gillespie and Larry Coble, did a great job putting together our website. So you can go to our website, southcarolinaMidstateBeekeepers.org, and you can sign up for our beginners class there. It's offered 1 Saturday each in January, February, and March. You'll learn everything you need to know to become a beekeeper. So I encourage anybody who's listening, who's interested in becoming a beekeeper, go to our website, sign up for that class, and we will get you started.
That sounds good.